So originally, before I came into this, before I became a social scientist, I was an engineer. So I got my undergrad in 2002. So that was in electronics engineering. And then after that, I did a master's in electrical engineering. And I was in a PhD program for a little bit. And I was working in this field of multimedia content analysis, multimedia signal processing, and human-computer interaction. And I was interested in it, but I realized that I was not that interested in building technology. I was more interested in studying technology as a social scientist. So I kind of left that field. Then I worked in a corporate research lab as a computer scientist for about 3 years. And then I sort of read up, and then I applied to a social science program. So then and because I already knew a lot about engineering, I wanted to do something where I could use my sort of knowledge as an engineer, but also be a social scientist. So I went to this program called Science, Technology and Society at MIT. And that's where I got my PhD. And then after my PhD, I got this job, and I've been here at ISF since. So my research is sort of at this intersection of digital technology, so computing, and work and labor and expertise. So I'm mostly sort of interested in what happens when institutions start to use computing or computers in their sort of day-to-day processes. So what happens to what workers do? How does that change relationship between workers? What happens to who gets considered an expert? What happens when sort of customers and workers increasingly interact with each other through software? Those are the kinds of things that I study. Yeah. So I'm a little anal when it comes to my teaching. So what I do in my teaching is that I follow this pedagogical principle. It's called backward design. So with backward design, you start from what you want your students to be able to accomplish at the end of the course, and you write that down as a goal, and it has to be sort of written with an active tense, like students should be able to analyze a technology, something like that, right? And then once you have worked those out, what you do is that you go and design your assessments first. So whatever it is you want students to do should be part of the papers they write or anything else that they do. So you design the assessments, and then after that, once you have all those down, then you go and start looking at the day-to-day activities. So what reading will they do? What will I give for the lecture? But the goal of it all should be that they should be able to do those assessments, which in turn means that they should be able to satisfy the learning objectives. So that's kind of how I usually design my courses. But I also have some other principles. So for instance, I try not to just lecture to students, because I don't think you learn so much just by reading or because you're talked at. Students learn by doing things. Like they have to actually do stuff, read together, like extract insights, maybe do some activities. So all my classes are organized around sort of active learning. So I try to give half of the class as a lecture. I make students do readings, but then the rest of the class I kind of plan these activities so that students are actually doing something, and that way they learn better. So that's pretty much how I organize my classes. I think ISF is one of the sort of richest environments here at Berkeley to be a teacher in. Partly because I get to do two things. I get to teach students about my area of specialization, so science, technology and society, computing and society, those kinds of things. And then I get to teach students how to do research, which is also something I really enjoy a lot. But the thing is, ISF students have a wide range of interests. So even if my interest is sort of in computing and work, we have students who are interested in public health, who are interested in like criminal justice reform, who are interested in questions of mental health. So when I'm teaching these students how to do research, or when I'm advising them about their senior theses, I actually end up learning a lot from them, because they are exploring these topics that I don't necessarily know much about. So I've had students who are like, students have written about mental health problems that social workers face, and so they've done interviews with them. Students have written about human rights activists and what their work is like and what their constraints are. And so, students have written about juvenile reform. And these are not things I knew about much. So I actually end up learning a lot from students when they write their thesis. So that way I get the best of both worlds. I get to teach students how to do research, but then I also learn about specific topics that they are interested in. Most, I think, successful ISF students, they tend to be very self-motivated and very driven. So when they come to ISF, they already, have some kind of interest in mind, right? And they are really interested in that topic, and they're able to kind of follow the topic wherever it goes. So, I have students come to me, and they might be interested in questions of like digital privacy, or something about AI and national security or whatever it is, but they really are passionate about that topic, and then they kind of let the research take them where they are. So I think that really helps the students, because if you are interested in a topic and you let the topic kind of take you wherever you want, you always sort of, like the ISF program really works out for you, because it really does kind of, you can let your topic take you wherever you want in the ISF program. So I think, yeah, that would be my take. Why is ISF a great choice of major? So I would say there are two things that I think the ISF major has that other majors at Berkeley, or at least most majors at Berkeley, don't have. First is that you're not guided by a discipline, you are sort of guided by a topic or research interest that you have. And so you can take courses around that topic, whereas in other majors you are kind of guided by the requirements of that major. But here you can let that topic kind of take you where you want to go. And so in that respect, I think the freedom that ISF majors have is very important. But the second thing you learn in an ISF major that you don't in another major is that because you have to write a thesis at the end, and because this is an empirical thesis, we actually teach you, all the ISF majors leave ISF knowing these very concrete research skills. So they may know how to do surveys, how to do interviews, how to come up with a research question, how to sample, how to think about explanations and how to make abstractions. And this skill, I think, of doing research is just very useful in general. So it's useful if students want to pursue research. So they want to go to grad school, they will go work in a think tank or an advocacy organization. So there sort of you want to be able to do research anyway, so that's very useful. But I would say like knowing how to do research is just useful in any job. So even if you're like a program manager in a software company and you're given a task like the customers are unhappy with this product and find out why. So that is a research question. That's really often sort of what research questions boil down to, is that you have to explain something. And so you can use all the principles that you learned to write your thesis in the service of that question, so that the answer you produce, is reliable, it is valid, and it is generalizable, right? So I think that would be one thing. And of course, you also have a very concrete product. You write a senior thesis, and a senior thesis, is really your own to show people what you're capable of, whether you go to grad school or not. So those would be the two things I think that the ISF major gives that I would say no other major at Berkeley will give you. I think students do have some misconceptions about ISF. I think one misconception that students have is that because it's a kind of do-it-yourself major where you come up with a course of study around the research topic. Sometimes students think that it means anything goes, but that's not the case. It's not that you can just design your own major. You really are designing a research field and then taking courses around it, guided by an ISF advisor. So in a sense, it's not that you can just take any course you like, it's more that you take courses, and there's great flexibility in that, but you take courses, I think, that help you understand a particular topic. And I think that is a misconception some students at least have. But there are some other misconceptions, I think, which sometimes discourage students from coming to us. And one might be that, they need a very high GPA or something. And I don't think, your GPAs can, there's a history of why you might have a GPA, but a GPA should not discourage you from coming to ISF, especially, if you're interested in doing research and if you have a topic that you are really excited about, then I would just tell students, don't be discouraged by a GPA, come to us, talk to us, and we would be happy to help you out. The other misconception students sometimes have is that they think that before they apply to ISF, they should have like a worked out thesis. And that again is not what you need. What you need is an area of interest, which we call a research field in the ISF form. So all you really need is an interest. You don't need to have like a worked out thesis topic where you know exactly what you want to do with your thesis. The point is that after you're admitted to the ISF program and then you take all the courses in your program of study, that's when you kind of start working out what your thesis topic is. And your thesis topic, maybe you had something in mind, it might change later, and that's okay. As long as it's within your broader research field. But you don't need a thesis topic to come to ISF. All you really need is an area of interest and some, at least, passion and interest in wanting to do research. For students who are interested in ISF, my advice would be that the best time to apply to ISF is either in the second semester of your sophomore year or the first semester of your junior year. So if you're a freshman or something, then what I would suggest is, and you're interested in ISF, I would use your first 2 years to sort of read up, take courses that you're interested in, find the topic that interests you. Don't start with preconceptions. You might think you're interested in something, but interests can change. So really use the first 2 years at Berkeley to kind of find something, explore some things, find out what interests you, and then usually once you reach sort of the second semester of your sophomore year, then come and talk to us. And in the beginning, as you're exploring, even as if you have questions, you're always welcome to come talk to us about your interests. So once you sort of get into the sort of sophomore year and junior year, then come to ISF. And then, as I said before, don't worry about your GPA. As long as you're interested in learning how to do research and you have a topic that you're interested in, your GPA should not be a barrier for you to do well in ISF.